Every time you fuel your car or use electricity from fossil fuels, you rely on a vast, mostly invisible transport system. Oil and gas travel thousands of kilometers through carefully planned networks driven by a quiet competition between pipelines and rail. Pipelines move huge volumes efficiently underground, while rail offers flexibility and reaches areas pipelines can't. So which is better? It's not that simple. It depends on cost, safety, environmental impact, and geography. In this video, we're breaking down the hidden battle between pipelines and rail to understand how your fuel really gets to you, and why the choice between them matters more than most people realize. Let's dive in right here on History of Simple Things. Pipelines are essentially long, continuous tubes designed to transport liquids or gases over vast distances. Once built, they operate 24/7, pushing fuel through using pumps or compressors. This system is highly efficient because it minimizes interruptions. There are no stops, no traffic, and no need for constant human intervention. Pipelines dominate fuel transport, handling the majority of oil and gas shipments in countries like the United States, where they carry around 70% of total volumes. Their design allows for steady, high-capacity flow, making them ideal for long-term, large-scale operations. However, building a pipeline is expensive and time-consuming. It requires permits, land acquisition, environmental reviews, and significant upfront investment. Once installed, though, pipelines become one of the cheapest ways to move fuel per unit, especially over long distances, because operating costs are relatively low compared to other transport methods. Rail transport, on the other hand, relies on trains carrying fuel in specialized tank cars. Unlike pipelines, rail systems are not fixed to a single route for a specific product. This flexibility is one of their biggest advantages. Rail can quickly adapt to changes in supply and demand, making it useful when new oil fields are discovered or when pipeline capacity is limited. Trains can also reach areas where pipelines don't exist, including remote or temporary production sites. However, this flexibility comes at a cost. Rail transport requires ongoing expenses for fuel, labor, maintenance, and equipment. It also depends on scheduling, infrastructure availability, and coordination across networks. While rail carries a much smaller share of fuel compared to pipelines, typically less than 5% in some regions, it plays a crucial role as a backup and complementary system. In short, rail is less about efficiency and more about adaptability. When it comes to cost, pipelines and rail operate on completely different financial models. Pipelines require massive upfront investment, often costing billions of dollars to construct. But once they're up and running, the cost per barrel of fuel transported becomes significantly lower than rail. This is because pipelines use less labor, consume less energy per unit transported, and operate continuously without interruption. Rail, by contrast, has lower initial infrastructure costs since tracks already exist, but much higher ongoing expenses. Each shipment involves fuel, crew wages, maintenance, and logistical coordination. As a result, rail tends to be more expensive per unit over time. However, there's a trade-off. Rail becomes competitive in situations where volumes are smaller or distances are shorter and where building a pipeline wouldn't make economic sense. In those cases, the flexibility of rail can outweigh its higher operating costs, especially when speed of deployment matters more than long-term efficiency. Safety is one of the most debated aspects of pipeline versus rail transport. Statistically, pipelines are generally considered safer when measured by the number of incidents per volume of fuel transported. Studies have shown that rail is over 4 times more likely to experience an occurrence compared to pipelines when adjusted for the amount of fuel moved. However, the type of accidents differs significantly. Pipeline incidents tend to involve leaks or spills, often small and contained, with over 70% releasing relatively minor amounts. Rail accidents, while less frequent overall in absolute numbers, can be more dramatic and dangerous when they occur, including derailments and explosions that pose direct risks to human life. In fact, rail incidents are more likely to cause injuries per unit transported, even if pipelines may spill more total volume in some cases. So while pipelines win in overall safety frequency, rail accidents often carry higher immediate consequences. At its core, the difference between pipelines and rail comes down to efficiency versus flexibility. Pipelines are extremely efficient for moving large volumes of fuel over long distances, but they are fixed systems, meaning routes are difficult and expensive to change once built. Rail, on the other hand, offers much more flexibility, allowing fuel to be rerouted based on demand and delivered to multiple destinations without needing new infrastructure. Because of this, rail is often used in areas where pipelines don't exist or when capacity is limited. In reality, these two systems don't just compete, they often work together, with pipelines handling the bulk of transport while rail fills in the gaps where adaptability is needed. The debate between pipelines and rail isn't about choosing a winner, it's about how they work together. Pipelines are efficient, cost-effective, and ideal for long-distance transport, while rail offers flexibility and can adapt to changing demand. Pipelines tend to have fewer incidents, but rail accidents often have more immediate human impact. In the end, modern energy systems rely on both, working side by side to keep fuel moving behind the scenes. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.